Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamani Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् सत्प्रत्यया किं नु विहाय सन्तं हृद्येश चिन्तारहितो हृदाख्यः कथं स्मरामस्तममेयमेकं तस्य स्मृतिस्तत्र दृढैव निष्ठा. Bhagavan Raman Maharshi is pointing us to the true depths of devotion, where he is introducing us to Swarupa of Bhagavan. Whenever Bhagavan takes avatar, there are several things he accomplishes through that avatar. This point we had seen in Ramcharitmanas. First thing he does is Leela, all different sports of the Lord, which make us appreciate his power. His Leela, the main purpose is the one who thinks Bhagavan to be ordinary. In his mind, this thought comes that he is not ordinary, he is somebody unique, somebody very powerful, acting to be ordinary. All Gokul Vasis thought Bhagavan Krishna as another cowherd boy. But when he started showing his Leelas one by one, slowly this buddhi came that this is not a jiva, this is Bhagavan doing Leela as a jiva. To increase that Mahatva buddhi, to increase that feeling of reverence, Bhagavan does Leelas. Then comes Charitra. Charitra is the conduct. Living life just the way that any other jiva would live. And in that situation, whatever challenges might come to an ordinary person, Bhagavan, when he takes avatar, he shows what is the ideal way of facing that situation. That is called as Charitra. These 2 points we had seen, I think. Leela and Charitra. There are few more. Whenever Bhagavan takes avatar, he also brings his Rupa, his form. That form is for meditation. Rupa of the Lord, all dhyana shlokas are written on the form of the Lord. That form is for meditation, to absorb the mind in that form. To directly connect with God as Virata, all pervading. What form comes to our mind? In fact, if it comes, it's very frightening. That is what happened to Arjuna. After seeing Vishwarupa Darshan, what was his bhavana? He says, Bhagavan, I want to see you in your Saumya Rupa, not this Virat Rupa. All Brahmanda, sun, moon, stars, all jivas appearing in the same place at the same time. So, Rupa of the Lord is a more mellower form of Virata. This is if you want to meditate, meditate on my Rupa. Leela, Charitra, Rupa. Whenever he takes Avatara, he also comes with his name, Nama. That name is for japa. Name is for japa. How to connect with the Lord? He says, do japa of his name. Just like we can connect through the form, we can also connect through Nama. So every avatara he takes, through that avatara, he gives us a Nama to do japa of. Remember, all these are ways to turn the attention to the Lord. They are not independent practices. Through the support of that practice, through support of that conditioning, we are able to turn attention to Bhagavan. Nama Rupa Dui Isa Upadhi. These are the Upadhis of Ishvara. Nama and Rupa. Leela, Charitra, Rupa, Nama. Fifth one, some Mahatmas say, is Dhama. Dhama means the place where Bhagavan took avatar. The place where he manifested. That place becomes a Tirtha Kshetra, where one can go to Ayodhya, keep the mind in Bhagavan through that Dhama. That is the fifth one. Leela, Charitra, Rupa, Nama, Dhama. In addition to all of these, Bhagavan says, if we have done these five well, we'll be led towards his Swarupa. Swarupa means his essential nature, that is none other than pure consciousness. That same Chaitanya manifested in a particular form, did all the Leelas, showed us Charitra, gave us a form, gave us a name. And Dhama Mahima also was there. But the result of all these practices is that sadhaka will be led to this Swarupa. Raman Maharshi says in these two verses, verse number 22 and 23, we should pay attention to the last step also. Swarupa of the Lord without holding on to Swarupa. If we just hold on to the practice, then we are missing out the main point. We are missing out the purpose for which we started all of that. Let us chant these verses 22 and 23. Yadishiturvikshणमीक्षितारम् यदीशितुर्वीक्षणमीक्षितारम् अवीक्षतन्मानसिके क्षणं स्यात् न द्रष्टुरन्यः परमो हि तस्य वीक्षा स्वमूले प्रविलीय निष्ठा आत्मानमीक्षेत परं प्रपश्येत् इत्यागमोक्ते सुलभो न भावः नात्मैव दृश्यो यदि का कथेशे स्वयं तदन्नी भवनं तदीक्षा. Without paying attention to the self, excluding consciousness, thinking about Bhagavan as a particular form, Ramana Maharshi says that is part understanding, partial understanding. Ikshitaram avikshya yad ishituhu vikshanam. Devoid of self, looking at Bhagavan as something other than consciousness. Tan manisika ikshanam syat. Means that is part understanding. There is still more to be understood. Drashtu anyah na paramah. Drashtu, or you can say drashtu paramah na anyah. Drashtu paramah na anyah means other than drashta, there is no separate Ishvara. Bhagavan's essential nature is drashta. He is the self. There is no another God different from the self. That self alone appears as this creation. Means don't look for him anywhere else. He is here right as witness of thought. In Shiva Mahimna Stotram, there is one verse, Manaf Pratyak Chitte, Savidham Avidhayatta Marutah. And that verse is telling us how to do self-enquiry. Manaf Pratyak Chitte. Withdraw the mind from sense objects, but according to the instructions given in Shastra. Don't try to struggle with pulling the mind back. Use techniques mentioned in Shastra, Drug Drishya Viveka, whatever techniques might be there. And it is said, when the mind turns towards the self, that self is an ocean of bliss. Ocean of bliss. Pramada Salilot Sangati Drusha. It's an ocean of joy and bliss. And in that bliss, this sadhaka whose mind has turned, that is as though drowning in that bliss. Nimajja. Nimajja means it is drowning. And then the devotee says, Bhagavan, this ocean of bliss, that you are. That is the meaning of this line. Na drashturannaha paramohi. Other than drashta, there is no another Bhagavan different from drashta. Bhagavan's essential nature is the self. Even Ramcharitmanas, the introduction of Bhagavan Rama is given as the ocean of bliss in whom everybody revels and who will give joy to everybody else. Vasishtha Maharshi, when he does Namakaranam of Bhagavan Rama, that is how he does. Tasya Viksha Swamule Praviliya Nishtha. Being very attentive to this self, that alone is called as Nishtha in Bhagavan. Being attentive to the nature of self, that alone is Nishtha in Bhagavan, because Bhagavan's nature is self. So Nishtha in self is Nishtha in Bhagavan. When we start our journey, we generally use the term Bhagavan for Paroksha and Atma for Aparoksha. Atma is something very deep within. And Bhagavan, whenever we say, we either look up or hands go somewhere. But that was our initial starting journey, where this buddhi came of astikya. Astikya means there is God. And that alone has brought so many things in our life. And one of the things that God's grace brings is this quest to seek where is God. Somebody might have this faith, there is God. But they're not very concerned about seeking Him. Wherever He is, let Him be. But this person says, not only I know there is God, I want to know where is God. So verses like these, they realign our quest. They say, if you want to find Bhagavan, seek Him within. Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, he mentions a beautiful point in this context. He says, those who are devotees and jnanis, they play between Nitya and Leela. Nitya means Nirguna Brahma, nature of the self, devoid of attributes. Leela means when the same Nirguna Brahma becomes Saguna and does Leelas, that is the second stage. Now what he says is, Jnanis have the unique ability that from Leela they can go to Nitya. From Leela they can go to Nitya. And he says, whenever you climb a ladder, you cannot remain there all the time. You will have to come down. So from Nitya, they come to Leela. From Nitya, they come to Leela. And from Leela, they can go up to Nitya. Means he says, a stage should come when we understand that this whole universe is Leela. That consciousness alone has become this universe. It is a sport of that consciousness. So Bhagavan is able to appreciate in Nirguna Swarupa as his own self and the Leela of this whole universe. He says it is good to separate buttermilk and butter. But true knowledge is to understand this butter is nothing but the buttermilk. Buttermilk alone has become butter. They are not two different things, although they looked different. Like that, he says between Nitya and Leela, to understand that Nitya alone has become Leela. So through Leela, he can go to Nitya. Through Nitya, he can come to Leela. That is this verse. Raman Maharshi accepts difficulty here. He says, Atmana miksheta param prapashyet. One should see Atma, one should see the self, one should see Bhagavan. He says these statements are not easy to understand. Why is it so? Because we start thinking there are two different pursuits. Seeking Bhagavan is outside, seeking Atma is inside. If we carefully notice, both are the same. And then we also saw objectification. That whenever we say seek Bhagavan or seek the self, first thing which will come to our mind is some object. Through the mind trying to seek something, whereas Bhagavan or the self is that substratum in which mind appears. So that is why this quest is not easy. Right from childhood until today, whatever we have learnt, everything has been objective knowledge. Means it was some object of which I had to see first, get data, then knowledge came. But this is one knowledge where the thing that we are trying to understand is not an object. The thing that we are trying to understand is not an object. So I have to use my intellect to turn attention towards that which never becomes an object of intellect. The one who understands in this way, for that person it is easy. What was the third reason? Ahankara obstructs. Our own ego, it will have so many immediate concerns that to actually seek what Upanishads are asking us to seek, that will become difficult. So one phalashruti of devotion is a person can wholeheartedly seek Bhagavan. This is one phalashruti of bhakti. Because first when he started coming to the temple, doing some prayer, it was sakama bhakti. He wanted something from the Lord. Whatever was his understanding of Bhagavan, the result of this bhakti is Bhagavan will free him from all immediate worries. Now with that available mind, either he can get more involved in the world, go more after Vishayas, or he can seek Bhagavan. Both are possible. Isn't it true? Whenever our mind is free, we don't have too much of concern. That time that we get, either we can productively utilize or become indulgent in that time. So this sadhaka is somebody who comes to seek Bhagavan in the midst of all the other things. So that was the third obstruction. to understand these two statements. Raman Maharshi gives the second one, objectification. He says, Natmaiva drushyo yadika kateshe. If Atma alone doesn't become drushya, what to talk about Ishvara? Essential nature of Bhagavan is the self which never becomes an object. Swayam tadanni bhavanam tadiksha. How should I seek it? It says, become the Naivedyam for the Lord. Naivedyam for the Lord. Let Bhagavan swallow this ahankara. He concludes this flow of thought in the next verse. Dhiye prakasham paramo vitirya. Dhiye prakasham paramo vitirya. Swayam dhiyontah pravibhati guptah. Swayam dhiyontah pravibhati guptah. Dhiyam paravartya dhiyontare. Dhiyam paravartya dhiyontare. Sanyojananeshwara drishtiranya. Sanyojananeshwara drishtiranya. Together. Dhiye prakasham paramo vitirya. Swayam dhiyontah pravibhati guptah. Dhiyam paravartya dhiyontaretra. Sanyojananeshwari drishtiranya. Paramaha. Paramaha means Ishvaraha, Bhagavan. Dhiye prakasham vitirya. Dhiye means to the intellect. To the intellect, having given sentiency. Bhagavan, having given sentiency to the intellect, what did he do? Swayam dhiyontaha guptaha pravibhati. Quickly he went inside and hid behind the intellect. Swayam dhiyaha antaha guptaha pravibhati. Secretly he is sitting inside. With this full confidence that I will not be disturbed. Everywhere this jiva will seek for ananda, he will not seek here. See, all saints, they just express this in a very poetic way. Kabir Das has written his composition where he says, Moko kaha dhoondhe re bande, main to tere paas mein. He's asking the sadhaka, where are you searching for me? I am right with you. Means it is like searching, what did Ramana Maharshi say? Searching for darkness with a lantern. Searching for darkness with a lantern means wherever you go, you will never find it. Like that he says, Atma is the nature of Bhagavan. Wherever we search outside, we will never find. Then he gives different places where you will not find. Of course, he is speaking from a very different standpoint, Kabir Das ji. Na hi japa mein, na hi vrata mein, na hi ekanta vasa mein. I am not in solitude, I am not in any practice. This is the only place where I am is in faith. Main to keval vishwas mein. Through that faith, inquire this self which is nature of God. Swayam dhiyontah pravibhati guptah. Dhiyam paravartya dhiyah antare atra. Dhiyam paravartya means having turned the mind inwards. Having turned the mind within, dhiyam paravartya dhiyah antare atra. Sanyojanat na ishvara drishtihi anya. Having turned the mind inwards and seeking the self, other than seeking the self, there is no separate Ishvara drishti. Means knowledge of Ishvara, knowledge of Bhagavan is complete only when we understand him as our own true self. In that way, we can look at this verse. So, in 3 verses, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi painted a very beautiful picture of what it means to seek God. To know that Bhagavan exists, Bhagavan is, Astikya Buddhi in Bhagavan, saves us from adharma. Wherever Bhagavan might be, this person's thought is, he is keeping a watch on me. And because devotee loves God, he doesn't want to do anything which will disappoint God. Devotee doesn't do the right thing because Bhagavan will punish if I do adharma. That is not his main idea. His main idea is, I love Bhagavan, so I will not do anything which will disappoint him. In that way, lot of good things come in his life. But that journey of devotion is complete when he understands Bhagavan as Atma. Somebody whom we can never be away from. All we can do is turn our mind away from him. And if we are thinking of Vishayas, that is another way of saying we are away from God. But literally speaking, we can never be away from God. In that way, this 3 verses complete. Now the next set of verses, 25, 26, 27, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi is very specifically explaining the idea or the concept of ahankara. What he has been referring so much from verse number 1 all the way until 24. Now he gives more detailed explanation how to define, how to notice ahankara. Again, we are not interested only in defining it. As we read the verse, we have to notice how it can be noticed. We have to appreciate how this ahankara can be noticed and how he is defining it. 25th verse. Navakti deho hamiti prasuptau. Navakti deho hamiti prasuptau. Nakopi na bhuvamiti pravakti. Nakopi na bhuvamiti pravakti. Yatrodite sarvamudeti tasya. Yatrodite sarvamudeti tasya. Dhiyahamah shodhaya janmadesham. Dhiyahamah shodhaya janmadesham. Together. Navakti deho hamiti prasuptau. Nakopi na bhuvamiti pravakti. Yatrodite sarvamudeti tasya. Dhiyahamah shodhaya janmadesham. Bhagavan is as though telling us here, ask this question, who is saying I? This aham that we say, he's asking us, inquire who says this. Very careful, easily we say this statement, I am this body. He says, ask whether body is agreeing with it. If we ask, what will happen? He says, Dehaha aham iti na vakti. Body doesn't say aham. Dehaha aham iti na vakti. Prasuptau na abhuvam iti na kaha api pravakti. Prasuptau na abhuvam iti na kaha api pravakti. In deep sleep, I was not there. This statement nobody says. Prasuptau means in deep sleep. I was not there. Na abhuvam iti, na kaha api vakti. Nobody says this. Means everybody understands in deep sleep I was there. So he says, inquire who is saying this aham. Body is not saying this. Atma is not saying this. Because if Atma had to say the small I, in deep sleep, small I is not there. So Atma would say, I was not there. Or we would feel, I was not there in deep sleep. But in deep sleep, I know I am there. So he says, inquire into this person, this ahankara, which is saying this aham, which is running the show, which is bringing the sense of finitude. What is the nature of this ahankara? He says, yatra udite sarvam udeti. Once this ahankara rises, my whole samsara rises. Once this ahankara rises, jiva samsara rises. The main teaching here is, I am not ahankara. I am that Atma in which ahankara rises. Along with that, everything else comes. So the journey back home is to abide in the self. Raman Maharshi gives an example for this yatra udite sarvam udete. When ahankara rises, everything rises. He says just like there is hen and the chickens. At the end of the day, when it has to go inside, the mother hen will gather all the chickens and go inside. He says that is this ahankara. The mother hen is the symbolic of ego. It will wrap up all its other karanas, all other instruments. Mind is there, sense organs are there. And it will go to deep sleep. Next day when sunrise happens, first one to come out is mother hen. Then it will bring all other little ones out. Like that he says, first ego comes out, ego rises. Then comes this notion that there is prana, there is body and so on. So the main pivot, the main anchor, that is ahankara. Whatever we do to ahankara will apply to everything that follows after it. If I take ahankara as satyam, body is satyam, prana is satyam, jagat is satyam. If I beautify my ahankara, mind is beautiful, world is beautiful, everything is beautiful. Now the important point. If I understand ahankara to be mithya, this individuality to be mithya, everything else is understood to be mithya. It is just like, let's say there is a magnet. On that magnet, there is an iron pin. That iron pin will stick to that magnet. Now when it sticks, that iron pin also gets ability to attract. Then you put small U pins, not on the magnet, on the iron pin. Okay, 10 or 15 of them are there. If you have to remove all the pins, you just have to remove that main nail. Once you remove it, everything else falls. Like that he says, this ahankara is like the iron nail. Once ahankara is removed, everything else is removed. Or when ahankara comes, everything else comes. This is what Ramana Maharshi said here. Yatra udite sarvam udaiti. When ahankara rises, everything else rises. The way to remove it is not to start with one thing. First I will remove world, then I will come to body, then I will come to prana. You see, focus on that on which all these things are rooted. Like the hub of the wheel, different spokes are rooted in the hub. You move the hub, everything else moves. Like that, ahankara is the thing in which all anatma is rooted. They rise along with ahankara. They get negated also along with ahankara. Yatra udite sarvam udeti tasya dhiya ahamaha. Or you can do anvaya as tasya ahamaha janmadesham dhiya shodhaya. Tasya ahamaha. Of that aham, dhiya. Dhiya means with a very subtle intellect. Janmadesham shodhaya. Search for the birthplace of this aham with a very subtle intellect. Birthplace generally is very dear to us, right? Wherever it might have been, small town. Whenever we go, we want to visit that place, want to take people also along with us. Just like physical body's birthplace is very dear, it says inquire into the birthplace of ahankara. We will find that blissful self from which this ahankara emerges. Puja Guruji's commentary on this is very humorous. Navakti dehohamiti prasupti. He says, just look at this body. Body doesn't have, you can read commentary later. I will explain what part is nice. He says, body doesn't have any problem with whatever is happening to the body. If hair grays, he says, hair doesn't complain that I'm graying. He says, the thumb doesn't want to start dieting. Not a little finger wants, no, little finger complains that I'm little. It's a nice way of saying they don't say aham. The one who says aham is somebody different from body. Ramana Maharshi in one place, he gives a very powerful and a beautiful point. To understand it is not easy though. But let's see if we can do it. Collectively, we can reflect. He says, ask this question: does the world tell you I am there? Or do you tell world is there? Does the world tell you I am there? Or do you tell world is there? He says, world tells me I am there. I have, let's say object is there, object doesn't come and tap on me. My friend is there, he comes and taps and tells me I am here. But Ramana Maharshi says, look at it closely. Even the friend coming and tapping, I will know that friend only when I am there. Only when ahankara is there, that is when presence of that friend is also known. Presence of world is also known. So he says, world doesn't tell you I am there. You tell world is there. You are saying world is there. World is not saying it. So focus on this I. Focus on this ahankara. Don't start with world. So that's why whoever came with whatever questions about the world, first he would bring them to aham. Because world's existence depends upon ahankara, not the other way around. It's a very subtle point. Huh? In sleep, when ahankara is not there, whoever might be around, even that same friend comes and taps. Unless this ahankara is willing to recognize, presence of that person is not established. This is world doesn't tell you I am there. I tell world is there. I say world is there. This is that we should inquire into the birthplace of ego. Janmadesham shodhaya. Now whatever technique is there, the effort is only to turn the mind inwards. right? Because generally, Shodhanam, search happens outside only. You take any scientific inquiry, where was the direction of search? Most of them were outside. Object was outside, so much we thought. But to change that direction and to bring it inside, you see, that's a great tapasya. It needs practice. Just like outer research, outer focus of mind needs practice, Bhagavan says this inner focus of mind also needs practice. And he gives a nice example. This is just like you do boring, go deep, and then you tap into water. Like that, we have to tap here and seek the self. Then one devotee comes and says, why is it that few people are able to get water and few people are not? Hmm. Some people, they will find water very easily in that boring. Some people will not. So Raman Maharshi, he doesn't answer it, but he says, this quest of inner search is easier than outer search. Why? He says, when you do boring, if you see the water outside, if you see the land damp or wet, you know precisely this is a good place to go down. Like that, he says, you are seeing sentiency reflected in so many places. You are seeing this ahankara which is sentient. Just follow the same thread, go deep within. There we will meet the self. So those who are able to notice this expression of sentiency and go to that Chaitanya which is devoid of conditioning, he says they will be able to seek the self. Now different functions and names of ahankara. Very precisely he mentions in 26th verse. What did 25th verse do? It just said, inquire into who is saying this aham and search for that janma desha. Search for the origin. Don't stop at ahankara. Inquire where is this ahankara rising from. But now he is telling us what are the different roles and names of ahankara. Deho na janati sato na janma. Deho na janati sato na janma. देह प्रमाणोन्य उदेति मध्ये देह प्रमाणोन्य उदेति मध्ये अहंकृति ग्रंथि अहंकृति ग्रंथि विबंध सूक्ष्म विबंध सूक्ष्म शरीर चेतो भवजीवनामा शरीर चेतो भवजीवनामा. Together. देहो न जानाति सतो न जन्म देह प्रमाणोन्य उदेति मध्ये अहंकृति ग्रंथि विबंध सूक्ष्म शरीर चेतो भवजीवनामा. देह न जानाति. Body doesn't know. Why it doesn't know? Because it is inert. Just like harmonium is inert, it doesn't know I am sitting in front of it. Like that, he says this body is inert. It doesn't know by itself. Consciousness is unchanging. To know something, you have to undergo some modification. So consciousness is unchanging. Consciousness also doesn't know. Vishesha Jnanam doesn't happen to Chaitanya. Consciousness doesn't know. It just illumines. Illumining is different from knowing the particulars, knowing the details. Consciousness is just illumining. It doesn't know any of the details. And because it is unchanging, it will never be born. It need not be born because it is eternal. What is already there, you never say it was born at some point. What was not there before can be born. So consciousness is eternal. It is never born. But in between these two entities, in between body and consciousness, there is one entity which plays the mischief. That is this ahankara. Deha pramaноnya udeti madhye. Deha pramanya means limited by this body. Thinking that I am this body, only this body. Deha pramanonya. In the measure of this body, udeti madhye. In between this deha and chaitanya, there arises ahankara. And the point here is, you cannot put ahankara in anatma, nor can you put it as atma. You say anatma is that which is inert, that which does not know. Is ahankara knows. Ahankara can know things, unlike deha. But if you say if it knows, is it sakshi? Is it consciousness? It is different from consciousness also. So neither does it belong to anatma, means technically speaking. If you just say all anatma is inert, ahankara is anatma. But if you just say all anatma is inert, ahankara will not fully fit that definition because it is expressing sentiency. And atma is unchanging. Ahankara will not fit that definition also because it is changing. So to explain this point, Ramana Maharshi would explain the story of the stranger in the wedding. Comes to the wedding, gives all directions. Put this here, put this there. Food items should be kept like this. And he was very irritating. Both people found him very irritating. Bride side and bridegroom side. But nobody dared to ask because they felt it was from the other side. So he did whatever he wanted. But at some point they said, this is it. We have to ask. So then when he asks, suddenly that person was not to be found. So neither was he bride side nor was he bridegroom side. In between, this person just came about. So he would explain this point and the next verse also, that when you inquire, ahankara disappears. Just like that person disappeared whenever they started inquiring. Deha pramanonya udeti madhye. Now namavali is given of ahankara. Different names. One name of ahankara is ahankruti. Ahankruti means whenever this notion comes, I did it. Aham karomi iti ahankara. Aham kruti, that is how this ahankara expresses. Granthi. Granthi means it's a knot. It helps to build a knot. Between what? Between Jada and Chetana. Jada is body, Chaitanya is the self. Really speaking, both can never come together. How can light and darkness come together? Like that, Chaitanya and Jada, they are contradictory. But the one who brings both together is this ahankara. Goswamiji has written an elaborate portion in Uttarakanda, where he says, Jada chetanahi granthi parijai, jadyapi mrusha chhutata katinai. He says there is a knot which is formed between Jada and Chetana. Although it is false, to untangle it is very difficult. He says, I will tell you how to untangle. And he gives around 2-3 dohas. That portion is called as Jnana Deepa Prakaranam. So he says, first bring a cow. He says, cow, you are talking about Granthi. How come cow is there? He said, no, Satvika Shraddha Dhenu Suhai. That cow symbolizes faith. And then, means what he's doing there is, he's building an analogy of how to churn milk, how to get milk from the cow, how to make butter, then get ghee, then take a wick, dip it in that ghee, light the lamp, and put it under the knot. In the fire of that knowledge, this knot will be opened. So for every step of making that ghee, he's mapping it with one sadhana. He says, first we need vairagya. What is the milk? You have to cool the milk after boiling it. Different sadhanas he gives. Finally, he says, Soham iti vritti akhanda. The Brahmakara vritti which arises, that is the flame. That is the vritti. Just like you have the wick and the flame, this Brahmakara vritti is the flame. And under this flame, that knot will be opened. So the Jada Chetana Granthi, which is there, with Brahmakara vritti, it will be cut asunder. That is this Granthi, knot. Bibandha. Vibandha means brings bondage. It is opposed to moksha. Opposed to moksha. Sukshma Sharira. All these are names of Ahankara. Some are functions, like Granthi is function, Vibandha is function. That is not a name. Ahankruti is name, Sukshma Sharira is name of Ahankara. So Ahankara sometimes is referred as Sukshma Sharira. Although there are so many other things, the chief among Sukshma Sharira is Ahankara. It is Sukshma than body. That's why the word Sukshma is used. Why Sharira? It operates through Sharira. Ahankara will operate through Sharira. That's why it's called as Sukshma Sharira. Chetaha. Cheta means mind. Sometimes synonymously, Ahankara is used with mind. Raman Maharshi very freely uses this interchangeably. Manomayam tad bhuvanam vadamaha. He didn't even bring Ahankara there. He said this whole world is nothing but mind. This is whenever that is used, we should understand sometimes it can be used interchangeably for Ahankara. Reflected consciousness, that's another name. Bhava, that is another name of Ahankara or another function of Ahankara, which means samsara. Bhava means samsara. Puja Guruji has given a more precise definition of bhava. It is that desire to become something. Bhava means that. Whatever we are right now, being discontent with that and wanting to be something different from that. Constant desire to be somebody, that is called as bhava. Now, if it is something good, some good quality, it will do good to us. But many a times, it is not only good qualities that we want to emulate, it could be some other desire. This person is like that, I should become like that person. Or this situation is like this, I have to change it to something else. That is bhava. Constant desire to be something else. Jiva Nama. Last name is Jiva. Jiva means the transmigratory entity which goes from one loka to another loka. That is after dropping this body. While in this body, it goes from one mana avastha to another mano avastha. That is also a loka. Huh? One state of mind to another state of mind, the one who constantly travels. That is this Jiva. How many names are here now? Ahankruti, Sukshma Sharira, Chetaha. Cheta is also a name, mind, and Jivanama. Jivanama. Nama means names. Jiva is the fourth name. What are the functions? Granthi, that which builds a bond between Jada and Chetana. That which brings bondage, Vibandha. And Bhava, that which brings samsara, that is this Ahankara. So different names of Ahankara, different functions of Ahankara. Next verse, he just concludes this flow of thought. If you want to label this verse, this is a resume of an ego. 27th verse. If Ahankara went for an interview, let us say, and questions were asked, where are you from? What do you thrive upon? What is your favorite food? All these questions for Ahankara, different answers are given. In a very precise way, Ramana Maharshi points out how this Ahankara operates in this world. In this world means in our life. And how to win over it. This we will see in the next session. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om